Cancer is often remembered as a symbol of gentleness, a soft gaze, a slower voice, a way of listening that makes others feel safe. When people think of cancer, they often think of sensitivity, compassion, the ability to love without conditions, and a heart that always puts emotion first. Ruled by the moon, Cancer carries the rhythm of the tides, emotions that rise and fall in cycles, a powerful intuition, and a nearly instinctive need to protect. Being close to a Cancer, many people feel understood, wrapped in care, as if they have stepped into a space where they no longer need to be on guard. But that is only the first layer of water, and like every ocean, the calm on the surface never tells the full story of what lies beneath. Behind that warm exterior exists an emotional depth that not everyone has the patience, the sensitivity, or the courage to reach. Cancer does not only feel their own emotions, they absorb the emotions of the world around them. They sense what is left unsaid, the sadness hidden behind smiles, the pain resting quietly beneath polite laughter. Over time, all of those feelings settle. They accumulate. They form a rich inner world, deep, complex, and often misunderstood. Many Cancers grow up in the role of the caretaker, the listener, the one who takes less, so everything around them can stay peaceful. They become a place of support so early that sometimes they forget they also need someone to lean on. And when the world only sees their gentleness, very few realize how much strength it takes to remain that soft, not loud, not showy, but steady, enduring, and deeply resilient. Inside Cancer lives an archive of emotional memory. Every look that once brought warmth, every word that once caused pain, every moment of trust, every disappointment. Nothing is kept out of resentment. It is kept because Cancer lives through emotion, and to them, emotion is truth. So when you meet a Cancer who has grown quieter than before, it is not because their heart has closed. It may be because they are protecting something very fragile inside themselves. There is something society rarely says about Cancer. They are not weak, they are deep. And that depth is not meant for everyone. It is meant for those who are willing to slow down, to listen, and to withhold judgment. Cancer does not need praise. They need understanding. And when they are understood correctly, their energy becomes a powerful source of healing, not only for themselves, but for everyone who enters their world. If you are a Cancer and you have ever felt misunderstood, undervalued, or labeled as too sensitive, remember this. The ocean never apologizes for its depth. Your gentleness is not a weakness. It is a doorway into a quiet, subtle strength that can reach places logic never can. And when you allow yourself to look deeper into who you are, you begin to realize that beneath the calm surface, there is a rare energy, waiting to be understood, to be respected, and to be used in a way that truly honors its worth. Cancer is not the kind of presence that makes a room fall silent the moment they walk in. They don't announce themselves with volume, with pressure, or with visible authority. Cancer's strength doesn't explode. It doesn't confront. It doesn't need to prove itself. It exists quietly, like a current beneath the surface, felt only by those who come close enough. And once you feel it, it becomes difficult to remain untouched. Cancer is not dangerous because they want to cause harm. They are dangerous because they can reach the deepest places inside another person. They speak through emotion. They listen through intuition. They connect through an invisible energy that logic struggles to name. Being near a Cancer, people often feel seen, understood, touched in places they usually keep hidden. And that feeling creates bonds faster, deeper, and far stronger than appearances would ever suggest. Some relationships with Cancer begin very softly, a conversation that feels ordinary, empathy offered at the right moment, a sense of familiarity that's hard to explain. Over time, that emotional thread thickens, it wraps tighter. It becomes a refuge. Cancer has the ability to become an emotional home, a place people return to when they are tired, when they are wounded, when they no longer know who to trust. And in those moments, Cancer doesn't need to do much. They simply stay. They listen. They are there. But this strength has two sides. When a connection grows too deep without balance, a refuge can slowly become a cage. Not because Cancer intends to trap anyone, but because emotion, when not placed carefully, naturally takes up space. Some people stay close to Cancer without realizing they are becoming dependent on that sense of safety. They grow accustomed to being understood, to being held, until they forget how to stand on their own. Cancer feels this clearly. They know when someone leans too heavily. They know when a connection is slipping beyond healthy boundaries. But instead of speaking up, they often choose silence, because the fear of hurting others can outweigh the concern for themselves. And within that silence, emotional energy continues to move, quietly but powerfully. Cancer's invisible strength is not about control, it is about influence. They don't give orders, they don't force outcomes. Sometimes it's only a look held a moment longer, a sentence spoken at exactly the right time, or a gentle withdrawal, and suddenly everything shifts. Not because Cancer manipulates, but because they understand emotion with rare clarity. They know what makes people feel safe, and they know what makes people uneasy. In mature Cancers, this strength becomes a healing gift. They use it to guide, to support, to help others see themselves more clearly. But for Cancers who have not yet learned to protect emotional boundaries, this same strength can leave them exhausted, drained, or unintentionally pull both sides into a connection that no longer feels free. If you are Cancer, the lesson is not to weaken this power. The lesson is to use it with awareness. You are not meant to carry the emotions of the world. Love does not mean dissolving yourself into someone else. And sometimes, the most humane thing you can do for a relationship is to allow space. When Cancer begins to recognize the true value of the invisible energy they carry, they no longer fear their own depth. They begin to feel safe standing in that strength, without hiding, without shrinking. And from there, the connections they create begin to change in quality. Less binding, yet deeper. Less dependent, yet more enduring. And the emotional current, instead of pulling people under, begins to guide them gently forward, opening new space for understanding and for healing to continue unfolding. Cancer's emotions do not arrive in short bursts. They don't pass through and disappear, they stay. They settle, they sink into layers of memory, into thought, into the smallest reactions that even Cancer themselves may not always notice. If other people experience emotion like waves on the surface, for Cancer, emotion is the entire ocean beneath. Wide, deep, and always moving, even when the surface appears calm. Cancer does not feel only with the heart. They feel with their entire body. An offhand comment, a shift in someone's eyes, a silence that lasts a little longer than usual. All of it is registered, not through logic, but through sensation. That is why Cancer's emotions are rarely shallow. When they are happy, their joy carries deep gratitude. When they are sad, their sorrow is quiet, but slow to fade. And when they love, it is not just a part of who they are. It is their whole being entering the connection. To love as a Cancer is to open every door, to allow someone to touch what is most private, most tender, most vulnerable. They love through full presence, through quiet care, through small things, done consistently over time. Some Cancers love without saying much, but they are always there when it matters. And some people only realize what they have lost after they walk away from a Cancer. Not just a relationship, but the rare feeling of being fully understood. But because Cancer loves so deeply, pain is never a small thing. When they are hurt, they do not explode. They do not shout. They do not confront. Cancer's anger is usually quiet, but it carries weight. It changes the way they see others. It slowly pulls warmth away. And sometimes, the person on the other side only notices once distance has already formed, once what felt familiar is no longer there. Cancer does not retaliate with sharp words. They turn inward. They grow silent. And within that silence, emotion continues to move. Deeper, heavier, not to hurt anyone, but to protect themselves. Because for Cancer, emotional safety is essential. When the inner waters become too disturbed, instinct guides them back inward. They close. They slow down. They create distance. That is why no one truly knows how deep the water is when they approach a Cancer. Some people touch the surface and believe they understand. Some go a little farther, sense the depth, and feel both drawn in and cautious. And only a few have the patience, the sincerity, to stay longer, to learn how to swim with that emotional current without trying to control it. Cancer is magnetic because of their depth, but that same depth can be frightening because it forces others to face their own emotions. Around Cancer, it is difficult to pretend everything is fine, difficult to live superficially, and not everyone is ready for that. That is why Cancer often attracts intense connections, yet also experiences departures without clear explanations. If you are Cancer and have ever wondered why you love so deeply, why you feel so much, remember this. The ocean does not choose to be shallow, to be accepted. Your depth is not a burden. It is where truth lives. What you need to learn is not to feel less, but to know who you give your emotions to and how much. When you respect your own depth, your emotions no longer become waves that pull you under. They become a current that guides you and those who truly understand you toward connections that are meaningful, grounded, and real. Cancer's memory is not like a notebook. It is more like a vault of emotion. Each memory is not stored as an event, but as a feeling. A sentence that once warmed the heart, a look that once built trust, a promise spoken in a moment that seemed ordinary at the time. All of it stays. It does not fade, it does not blur, and it is not easily replaced. Cancer remembers not because they want to cling to the past, but because emotion, to them, is alive. When something truly touches their heart, it leaves a mark, and that mark becomes part of how they see the world, how they see other people, and how they see themselves. Some people forget quickly. For Cancer, forgetting is not the natural response. Remembering is, quietly, persistently. They remember details others overlook, a shift in someone's tone, a silence that lasts a moment too long, a brief sense of unease during what seemed like a joyful meeting. Because they remember this way, Cancer is rarely fully deceived. They may not speak it aloud, but inside, they have already taken note. That emotional memory becomes a warning system, gentle, subtle, but precise. Cancer is capable of forgiveness. They understand that everyone makes mistakes. They do not want to hold on to resentment, because carrying too much weight exhausts the heart. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. The memory remains, like layers of sediment resting at the bottom of the ocean. It does not always rise to the surface, but it shapes the depth. And that depth makes Cancer more cautious each time they choose to open their heart again. Some Cancers live with old memories for a long time, not because they don't want to move forward, but because they need time for emotion to settle deeply enough. They need to understand what happened, what they learned, and what should be kept as wisdom, not as a wound. While the world rushes to say, just forget it and move on, Cancer often chooses another path. They stay with the feeling long enough to truly understand it. But this memory can also become a burden. When a memory has not been fully processed, it can pull Cancer back into the past again and again. They remember not only to protect themselves, but sometimes to ask quietly, did I do enough? Did I love enough? Did I try hard enough? And within questions that have no clear answers, they can become stuck, even while life on the outside keeps moving forward. They work, they function, they care for others. What Cancer needs to learn is not how to erase memory, but how to place it where it belongs. Memory is not meant to return to. It is meant to understand what has been lived through. When Cancer begins to see memory as a source of emotional wisdom, rather than a place to hide, they begin to feel lighter. They still remember, but memory no longer leads them. They still feel, but past emotions no longer decide the present. If you are Cancer and have ever felt that you remember too much, know this. That is not a flaw. It is the ability to preserve what has value. What matters is allowing yourself to release what no longer supports your growth. When you do, emotional memory no longer becomes a chain. It becomes a compass, guiding you toward what is worth keeping, what needs to be set down, and which direction leads to real peace within your heart. Cancer's protective instinct is not something they learned. It arrives early, naturally, like breathing. From a young age, many cancers learn to observe their surroundings, to sense what needs protection, who is weaker, who has been silent for too long. They carry an ancient impulse to keep what they love safe. And that impulse grows with them, moving into every relationship, every choice, every action, even the ones that seem small. Cancer is like the hard shell of the crab that represents them. On the outside, they may appear gentle, slow-moving, even reserved. But inside is a sacred space where family, loved ones, memories, and deep emotional bonds are placed at the center. Once Cancer decides that someone is theirs, they do not love halfway. They protect through presence, by remembering others' needs before their own, by being willing to sacrifice to keep harmony and safety for everyone involved. Some Cancers love quietly, but with great endurance. They do not speak often about their sacrifices, because to them, this is simply natural. Protecting the ones they love is not a duty, it is instinct. When someone struggles, Cancer is often the one who stays the longest. When things become unstable, they step in front, even when they are afraid, even when they are exhausted. But instinct, when not guided by awareness, can go too far. Cancer may not always realize how thin the line is between protecting and controlling. Care, when placed incorrectly, can become pressure. The desire to keep others safe, without space, can begin to feel suffocating. And in the effort to keep everything intact, Cancer can forget that everyone needs room to breathe, to experience life, and to grow in their own way. There are moments when Cancer protects out of love, and moments when they protect out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of distance, fear of what they cannot control. When fear leads the action, love can become heavy, confining, even if the original intention was pure. Not because Cancer wants to possess, but because they value what they have so deeply. This often places Cancer in the role of carrying too much. They care for others before caring for themselves. They endure so others can remain at peace. And over time, this unbalanced sacrifice can leave them tired, even resentful, though they may never say it aloud. On the outside, they remain the caretaker. On the inside, their energy may be quietly draining. The greater lesson for Cancer is not to protect less, but to protect more wisely. To understand that love does not require control, that allowing others to stand on their own is also a form of protection, and that Cancer themselves deserve to be protected, to rest, to feel safe within their own emotions. When Cancer learns to create healthy boundaries, their protective instinct becomes something beautiful. It no longer confines, it supports. It no longer suffocates, it creates trust and stability. And within that space, love is not imprisoned, it is nurtured. Cancer no longer stands alone in front of the world. They stand beside it, close enough to protect, far enough for everyone to remain fully themselves. Cancer no longer stands alone in front of the world. They stand beside it, close enough to protect, far enough for everyone to remain fully themselves. And within that delicate distance, a very special ability begins to reveal itself. Not loudly, not dramatically, but strong enough to shift the emotional rhythm of an entire relationship. It is the way Cancer senses people, not through words, not through logic, but through subtle, honest vibrations that many don't even notice within themselves. Cancer often knows whether someone is truly okay, even when they are smiling. They notice the soft drop in a voice, the slight slowing of breath, the brief moment when someone's eyes drift away. These things come to Cancer not as a learned skill, but as a natural reflex. Their intuition works quietly, continuously, like an undercurrent that never stops moving. And being near a Cancer, many people feel seen, understood, touched in places they usually keep hidden. Some conversations with Cancer require very few words. Sometimes, just sitting side by side in silence is enough for everything to be said in a different way. Cancer listens not to respond, but to feel. And because of that, others open up more easily than they expect. Not because they are persuaded, but because they feel safe. Not because they are guided, but because they are held in a space without judgment. Yet this ability carries an invisible weight, because when you understand another person's emotions too clearly, you also gain the power to influence them. Cancer doesn't need to force anyone to do anything. They don't need control through action. Sometimes it is just a sentence spoken at the right moment, a gaze held a second longer, or a gentle withdrawal. And suddenly, emotions shift direction. No one gives orders. No one is pressured. But everything feels different. What makes this ability both beautiful and unsettling is that it often happens unconsciously. Cancer is not calculating. They are not thinking about controlling anyone. They are simply responding to what they feel. But what they feel touches very deep places inside others. And some people, after spending time near Cancer, begin to think, act, and feel in rhythm with Cancer's emotional flow without realizing it. For emotionally mature Cancers, this becomes a healing gift. They use empathy to help others understand themselves. They say what needs to be said to lighten the heart. They remain silent at the right moment so answers can rise on their own. Their presence becomes a form of guidance that is gentle and deeply humane. But for Cancers who have not yet learned to create boundaries, the same ability can become exhausting. Because when you are always sensing other people's emotions, you can forget your own. Some Cancers have carried too many feelings that were never theirs to hold. They listened too much. They felt too much, until the line between their emotions and someone else's began to blur. In that merging, they can grow tired, even lost, while still appearing kind, gentle, and understanding on the outside. What Cancer needs to learn is not to weaken their intuition, but to trust that they do not need to carry everything. Not every emotion they sense is their responsibility. When Cancer allows themselves to step back slightly to create a safe inner distance, their empathy does not disappear. It becomes clearer, lighter, more precise, and used in the right way. From that place, Cancer no longer pulls others into their emotional current. They stand firmly within their own flow. And from there, their presence no longer unsettles others. It helps them find balance again. No promises needed, no instructions given. Just being there, fully, genuinely, allowing emotions to be seen, to be understood, and to be gently set down. There are moments when Cancer feels very close, very warm, fully present. They speak a little more, care a little more, and the person beside them may believe they have reached the whole of who Cancer is. But in truth, that is only the outer door. Behind that openness, there is still another space, quieter, deeper, a place where the real wounds are kept with great care. Cancer is not skilled at displaying pain, not because they don't feel it, but because they feel it too clearly. When a wound appears, their first response is not to speak, but to retreat. Like a crab pulling deep into its shell at the first sign of danger, Cancer does the same. They grow silent. They slow down. They stop sharing what once came naturally, and the shift happens so quickly that the person beside them often doesn't understand what just occurred. Cancer's coldness is rarely an attack. It is a barrier, a form of self-protection when emotion has reached its limit. Just yesterday, they were warm, listening, gentle. But one moment of feeling unsafe can cause everything to close. No noise, no arguments, just distance, clear, real, and difficult to reach. What confuses many people is that Cancer does not always explain their withdrawal, not because they wish to punish anyone, but because they are trying to keep the fragile parts inside from breaking further. Some pain, if spoken too soon, becomes distorted. Some emotions, if touched before they are ready, only hurt more. Cancer understands this, even when they cannot put it into words. That shell holds the memories of trust that was betrayed, of openness that was not honored, of staying too long in relationships that slowly drained them. Each time, the shell grows a little thicker, not to shut out the world, but to remind them that their emotions also need protection. And yet, this ability to close the door without warning is Cancer's strongest weapon, because when they retreat completely. No half measures, no lingering. And those who were used to their warmth feel the absence immediately. Not because Cancer intends to cause pain, but because their absence leaves something very real behind. The feeling of losing a place of safety that once existed. For Cancers who have not yet learned how to communicate emotion, the shell can become a wall that is too high. They isolate themselves, believing silence is the only way to avoid further harm. But for more mature Cancers, the shell is no longer an escape. It becomes a pause, a place to listen inward, a place to decide what deserves to be let back in and what should remain outside. The lesson is not to break the shell, but to learn when to open it. Not everyone needs entry. Not everyone deserves to see the most vulnerable parts. When Cancer allows themselves to choose, instead of closing out of fear, the shell stops being a weapon. It becomes a healthy boundary, a boundary that protects the heart without blocking real love. And when Cancer begins to feel safe within their own shell, they no longer fear being misunderstood, because they know the warmth they give is not an obligation. It is a gift. And only those with patience, with sensitivity, with sincerity, will remain long enough to wait for the door to open again. Not out of fear of loss, but because the moment is truly ready. And right there, in the silence that seems to have closed everything, Cancer's true energy begins to move in a different way. No longer defensive, no longer enduring, but quietly transforming, like the tide changing direction when the moon shifts. Cancer doesn't need to break anything to create change. They do it through emotion, through presence, by allowing others to look back at themselves without ever feeling forced. Some people enter Cancer's life with many sharp edges, with wounds they cannot yet name. And after spending time nearby, they slow down. They begin to speak more honestly, to look deeper, to feel more fully. Not because Cancer teaches them anything, but because beside Cancer, they feel safe enough to stop defending themselves. This is a kind of healing that is quiet, unannounced, but undeniably real. A healing that happens in small moments, ordinary moments, deeply human ones. Cancer supports others in ways they often don't even notice, through rare patience, through a gaze without judgment, through a presence that lasts long enough for someone else to walk through their own fear. In a world that is always rushing, always loud, that energy becomes something rare. It doesn't push anyone forward faster. It allows them to move at their own pace. And for many people, that is the first time they have ever been allowed to do so. But every strength needs to be understood correctly. When Cancer is missing, undervalued, or placed into a role where they are expected to give endlessly without receiving in return, that emotional current can rise. Not like a sudden storm, but like waves that have been building from far away. At first, there is only exhaustion, then distance. And if they are still not heard, still not understood, the same energy that once healed can sweep everything away. Not out of anger, but because there is no longer a place for emotion to rest. Around Cancer, no one can live superficially. Their presence forces others to face their own depth. That is both a gift and a challenge. Some people enter Cancer's world and grow. Some enter and then leave because they are not yet ready for that level of honesty. And neither is wrong, because Cancer was never born to please everyone, but to touch what is most real. For Cancer themselves, the most important journey is not calming the world, but learning to trust that their gentleness does not need to be paid for with pain. When they allow themselves to stand firmly in their own worth, without shrinking, without hardening, their energy becomes luminous. It no longer pulls people under. It no longer clings. It becomes deep water, steady, nourishing what truly deserves to grow. And then, being close to a Cancer is no longer just an emotional experience. It becomes a transformational encounter. People leave not the same as when they arrived. They understand themselves better. They feel lighter, more honest. And Cancer, after everything, loses nothing. They simply learn how to let their energy flow in the right direction. And in that quiet movement, they leave behind a mark that is not loud, but lasting, deep, and never meaningless.